Evening, one and all, and welcome once again to our midweek live stream called, well, I'm pretty much calling it now Wednesday Night Live. So screw it. It's the Wednesday Night Live. Welcome. So, for those of you, just before we go into some welcomes in the chat, we're picking up where we left off from last Sunday, where David Frost had just dropped his magnum opus, his essay on how we need to solve Britain and keep the Brexit revolt going. Yes, we are finishing off David Frost's Holy Illusions, or as I like to call it, David Frost's Holy Brexit Illusions. So we're going to go and finish this off first. But a TDLR for people to catch people up. What have you missed if you don't want to go back and watch that live stream? Because that was almost like a 2-3 hour live stream going through that at that point. Basically, David Frost is completely nutso. He's trying to rewrite his own history. He straight up said that he wants to get rid completely of renewable energies, like not even keep them, but anything that we currently have renewable energy wise, he just wants to completely get rid of them. He's blamed unions, he's blamed wokeism somehow for negatively affecting the economy, although he didn't exactly say how being woke affects the economy. And of course, he blamed unions for striking. Well, basically blamed unions for striking, and they're the real problems of the UK. And of course, he delved into a bit of Britannia Unchained as well, and also re-echoed the sentiment that UK workers were indeed the laziest in all of Europe, thanks to, again, workers' rights and protections that they enjoy. So, yeah, this, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to finish this off because I think it really deserves to be finished off good and proper. So, like I say, if you want to go back and you didn't see the first part, like I say, there is a live stream VOD on my channel where you can watch the first part where we go through this. But we are finishing where we left off last time. And I like to say, I'm just giving you the quick rundown of what happened last time. So, before we go diving back into this, welcome, one and all, to our wonderful Wednesday Night Live. So, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, there's the YouTube subscription button called the Pony Club, where you can join that. Or there's the, I think, YouTube thank you button. Don't know if it exists on live streams, but there you go. But anyway, hello to the people in chat. Colin Thompson, greetings from New York as always. Greetings to you. Duke Vengeance is a bit chilly in hell today. Well, yeah, it's been incredibly hot. We are in for another heat wave. That's definitely for sure. Shane Heff, hello from Ireland. Hello to you. Looking forward to hearing Frosty's latest words of wisdom. This is going to be the good part. This is the good part, Shane, because previously you had the preamble. So now, this and the final chapter is how Frost says he intends to fix Britain. And if you may remember last time, it was all very right-wing, libertarian, free market, fundamentalist lingo that we'd heard. So strap yourselves in, because I'm sure it's going to be fun. Chatty Rat, good evening to you. Cavaland100, good evening to you from our sunny Edinburgh. Duke Vengeance, hello to you. So yes. So let's rock and roll, because yes, we are going into this full steam as always. Now let me get this up. Let me just check. I should have done this before, really. There we go. That's better. So there you can read along as well. In fact, can I? Yes, I can. Does it still? Yes, it does. Excellent. I wonder, can I? No, hang on. Hang on. Let me just go. That. There we go. Then, if I put it there, there we go. I should now. There we go. I can now not only see the text, but I can also now see the chat as well. So there we go. So let's dive in then, shall we? So, as we just said, brief one over. We'd been over Frost's preamble of what he saw as the problems of the UK, and now we're into what hopefully will be some quite good fun. Here we get the solutions. Here we should get the true craziness of what Frost is about to suggest to the UK. Oh, Pretty Bird, greetings to you. I didn't see you there sneaking in. You have a duck hatchling that needs your help. Well, so it's a good excuse, but yes. But yes, look after that duck hatchling, definitely. Yeah, send pictures as well. Yeah, send pictures to Twitter and whatnot. You know, share the duckling love. But anyway, let's go diving into this. So then, he begins. Any government that actually wishes to begin the task of solving Britain's problems will need to take on the intellectual shibboleths described above. It must change the climate of opinion, not conform to it. It must aim to achieve the following. So first, it must convince the public that change is needed. The public must come to feel that we have taken a wrong path and react against it. Wait, what? Okay, so what if the public are angry at the path you're putting forward? Then what? Okay. Secondly, it must then show the electorate an alternative. It must set out why the most urgent task is to increase the productivity capacity of our economy, because without the other problems, they simply can't be solved. And persuade the public to see that collectivist socialist solutions are incapable of achieving that. So, yeah, basically, all the problems that we have today, very much, of course, a problem of capitalism. And instead, we're going to double down on that capitalism, double down on exploiting your worker, double down on it, says Lord Frost. Thirdly, it must persuade the public that its alternative route is actually possible and that the government has a plan to get the country into that. Continuing on the current path will simply make the inevitable correction measures more painful, and the failure to take such measures will mean a materially worse outcome. So that's fun. Basically persuade people, yeah, look, we know it's really bad now, but all this stuff that we really want to do is going to make things even worse. So, you know, you're going to have to let us do it. You know, that's... Oh. And finally, it must make the alternative politically feasible and hence potentially attractive. All history and experience teach us that free markets and individual freedom produce prosperity and wealth, and that state control and collectivism destroy it. Citation needed, definitely. There are lots of socialist things that we do now in the country. Most sort of what they called now. Oh, I'm having complete brain blank now. What do you call them? Companies, socialist companies, worker democracies. Oh, I'm having a complete brain blank now. Come on. Worker cooperatives, that's it. Yes. Worker cooperatives in the UK are very often more productive than their actual privately owned counterparts. Something to consider there, maybe, Frost. Okay. Oh, I like this. Then, so there is generally no alternative. So to David Frost, there is generally no alternative. We have to pursue down a complete free market fundamentalist mindset and road, which no one really wants and no one would really vote for, given the fact the damage and destruction that it would cause. And you would probably go and cause even more damage. And why is he doing this? Why is he saying this? This is exactly what they did for Brexit. So they're going to try and probably sell the next big, I don't know, UK economic miracle the exact same way they did as Brexit. So, it continues. But here, the political difficulty is that governments and politicians have, for many years, set out the reality of how economics work and how prosperity is created. Is that not a good thing? Is that not good that governments and politicians have set out the reality of how economies work and how prosperity is created? Oh no, so we have not for many years. And that is true. That is actually true. They actually haven't set out the reality of economics. Levels of understanding are low. The ground has not been prepared. The work must now begin urgently. So essentially, Frost wants a complete blitz on selling these wacky free market fundamentalist ideas. And we've seen that, by the way, in the Tory leadership contest. So expect those probably to seriously ramp up after. So, continues, what is the alternative for reforming the government and it needs to present? It is a broad program and crucially one that reflects the reality that people don't live only in a market or in a community, but in a country. Wait, what? People don't live only in a market or only in a community, but in a country? Chat, seriously, does that make sense? Like, does that make sense to anyone? I'm generally struggling trying to think what sense does that make. So create one where people live only in a market, that they don't live only in a market or only in a community, but in a country. Okay. A successful nation state needs market economics to create prosperity. Okay. And it requires solidarity and a clear sense of identity to sustain itself. A reform program must be similarly very broad based. It should reject the artificial polarity between the market, right wing, economics, and economic globalization, and society, the left wing, statism, and solidarity, but recognize instead that running a successful country involves elements of both. So basically, when you're trying to push your ridiculous free market economy, don't say that it's right wing. Don't say that it's globalism, because a lot of people in the Brexit referendum in 2016 were convinced that if they voted to leave, we would have less globalization. But the Brexiteers have offered the exact opposite of that. Anyway, he continues. This is because in a democracy, the quote, churn and turbulence of a free market economy will only be supported over time if they are felt based in a common community with an effective government and with effective, meaningful nation state. All history and all modern politics shows that this policy mix is the only one that can create a successful country and an attractive, prosperous society. It's a fallacy to take a view that some do on the left that people's aspiration for a sense of community and solidarity means we can't keep it means that we can just dispense with free market economics, attack big business, and keep increasing the size of the state. Unless you're a communist, which I don't think he means. Again, I think he's tarring the entire, the left with the brush, because free market economics can mean a lot of things, but unless you're a communist, I don't think anyone else on the left is going to get rid of free market economics. Most socialists I know have basically said, yeah, there is going to be sort of, free market, like a free market, but it's going to be sort of very regulated, and probably a lot of rich people are going to be taxed more for it, which, okay, fine. But, and again, attacking big businesses. Why does the left attack big businesses? It's because mostly they are underpaying their workers, they are exploiting them on 0-hour contracts, and basically, it comes down to the bottom line, they are exploiting their workers. Why? Does that what he mean? Is that what he means? That's why the left go after big business, because they're the main culprits for it. And keep increasing the size of the state. Well, what do you mean by that as well? Because you've already said you want to decrease the size of the state earlier on. You said that you want to get rid of sort of, it's so hot today. I just keep on forgetting. You have to excuse me. Universal credit, that's what he wants to get rid of. But no, we can keep increasing the size of the state. In fact, the state can be a massive driver of the economy in itself when it uses its spending power to use its own, to buy stuff from the economy to build and grow stuff. The NHS works, libraries work. There's so many other, socialist things that we have, and Whitehall in itself needs to be the size that it does, because when you decrease something, be it taxes or you decrease the size of Whitehall, that means essentially the government is going to stop doing something, or it's going to do something less effectively than it did before. This is what a lot of people on the right don't want to engage in that argument of. So anyway, so he says that way lies economic decline. I think most of the European countries in Europe would very much disagree. And when you look at places like Russia, of course, pre sort of, Ukrainian war sanctions, even their economy was not doing well. And that economy was easily the most sort of closest to the type of economy that someone like Frost generally wants. So equally, it is a fallacy to argue, as some on the right do, that economics is the only thing that matters. People engage in economic activity not only for its own sake, but because they want to support themselves and their families. They want to build things and that last after them. They hope to be part of a successful, admirable, worthwhile national project in which as many individuals as possible can live a good life. So I'd sort of agree, that's why people engage with the economy. That's what people do. You have to work to earn money. It pays for housing, food, etc. Of course, congratulations, Frost, for being the, Eco 101. So an important report by Michael Mazar of the RAND Corporation concluded that competitive societies tend to be open, tolerant, full of intellectual energy, and a commitment to learning. They have a powerful sense of their own role in the world and a sense of mission or will. They almost always benefit from a strong public and private institutions, as well as state apparatus that actively promotes advantage, and they embody a pluralistic clash of ideas and an ability from people from many different backgrounds to offer their talents and succeed. This term is a specific mix of the characteristics of the Renaissance spirit. So, again, I don't know what, in sort of a larger context, that quote really comes from. But considering it's from the Rand Corporation, very suspect, but yes, anyway. So, Britain is extremely well placed to get on this path if we change the direction in recent years. So, the reform programme needs to be broad-based and deal with the full range of issues. And accordingly, it should be built around 3 pillars. So, finally, we are going to get back into some policy. So this is going to be his core policy offering of what he wants to do. So remember, these are going to be Frost's 3 pillars. So the first pillar is to begin the process of reversing the economic trends of recent years. Get markets working properly again, get the state back to a quote normal size. Well, here's the first thing, Frost. You probably can't agree on what a normal size of the state should be. So maybe, first of all, you should be establishing, because you haven't so far in your report, what the size of the state should be. And I think if you came out and honest about that, you might find a lot of people might have a big of a backlash against you. So, normalize the state, re-establish the cultural, political, and economic value of freedom. That's nonsense, because a cultural value of freedom probably exists. Maybe a political value of freedom, that certainly does exist. But an economic value of freedom, that again, freedom is just a buzzword, to be honest, that's very often used in economics. And you see this, I'm pretty sure a lot of people, if anyone's from America who's watching, Republicans do this all the time. Whenever they try to make some sort of big, ridiculous economic change, they always spin it as, we're giving you the freedom to do it. It's spun as a move for more freedom, when in reality, in most cases, it actually means less freedom for you and more freedom for the people who can, well, basically afford to do it. So anyway, continues. So these are the only economics that work, and there is no avoiding them. We must involve aluminium. I like that. The only economics that work. Let's just ignore the fact that all of Europe, very, very socialist, very, very regulated, but also at the same time, still very capitalist as well. So, what does he want to do? So, he wants to re-establish the norms of a functioning free market capitalist economy by gradually moving to normalize interest rates. By the way, I still haven't seen a rebuttal. I was hoping we might see one to Frost's ideas to normalize the interest rates, but I haven't seen one yet. And again, I've said before, I'm not an economist, but my view on him sort of normalizing the interest rates by basically saying, hey, Bank of England, you're going to basically set the interest rates to how we tell them to you to. Very much removing the freedom of the Bank of England. I know that's been discussed quite a lot very recently about either removing or constricting some of the, or giving even more power in some arguments to or from the Bank of England. Again, that seems to be very, very much in the air about how people are discussing it. But the idea of re-establish the norms of a free functioning, free market capitalist economy. We already have a functioning capitalist economy. I doubt if you change interest rates, it's going to be that big of a change. Yeah, that's it. T5. Yeah, it's easy talking buzzwords. Yeah, that's it. It's easy talking buzzwords than give details of your ideas and policies. Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, that's really what we're seeing here. Frost doesn't want to sort of admit what he's really saying, I think. So, increase the productivity capacity. Act and prospectively for the economy so that wages grow and so that more normal interest rates can be sustained over time. This will require very significant supply side reform coupled with a supportive policy frameworking involving a more assertive competition policy and a more open trade policy. So that to me says, what do you mean by increasing the productivity capacity? What do you mean by that? Do you want there to be more workers? So how are you going to do that then? Great. Again, if you grow the economy, wages, will go up. But increasing the productivity capacity, look at Sweden, where easily the most productive country, I think, out of all of Europe. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but they're moving to a 4-day week. They work probably some of the least hours in like Europe, and yet they're like triple the capacity of not only, well, in fact, no, they're probably 4 times more as productive as the UK, and I think they're like double the size of most other European countries. But then again, other European countries have got this sorted out. They've got their productivity issues on side. They know how to solve it, but we don't, and it's been a long running issue, really dating very, very much all the way back to sort of the end of sort of the industrial era. One of the infamous stories we had was after the First World War, we went over to the UK, and one of the things that we took, again, it's in the Treaty of it's in the Versailles Treaty. We took a load of power tools and equipment from German factories and brought them over to the UK, and they were used for decades. Even after the Second World, and even when you came up to like the Second World War, where more and better tools had been invented, companies and businesses were still using those tools because they didn't understand sort of investing in better equipment, better, working conditions for their workers. It's crazy, but that's something that has openly continued for years, and it's never really been addressed. A more assertive competition policy, again, don't know really what he means by that. What do you mean competition? Do you want businesses to do something better or worse? Do you want them to compete more? How are you going to encourage that? What do you mean by that? And of course, a more open trade policy basically means having 0% on tariffs, which is the crazy free market fundamentalist way that if we have 0% tariffs, everyone else will have 0% tariffs. Again, it doesn't work like that. Because again, we've done that before in the Victorian age. It lasted 6 years. So anyway, it continues. And boosting the rewards to enterprise and the returns to investment in order to provide the impetus to make these desirable developments happen. This means, of course, lower taxes and higher profits and salaries. As we are finding out now, higher profits do not necessarily translate into higher salaries. Anyway, his second pillar. So the second pillar is to start to rebuild an effective state. So, capable of delivering results. This involves showing that an effective state is not a big state. Indeed, in many ways, the bigger a state, the less effective it is. And indeed, the state must shrink in size from its current size over time. So, what then do you intend to give up? Because if you are shrinking the state, you are saying that the government is going to no longer provide certain services or certain, other activities that the government is involved in. What exactly are you going to do with that? The aim must be a state that delivers its core tasks. So again, core tasks. What are these core tasks? Properly in a way that it does not, at the moment, run by a governing class and establishment that can be trusted, which is committed to accepting its responsibilities and doing its job possibly. This will include inter alia. So, so again, this is very worrying. Wanting to set up a governing class and establishment that can be trusted. Trusted by who? Does he want to live in democracy anymore? Is this where he's going, advocating for the end of democracy? That's a bit sus, if you ask me. So this will include a system of effective immigration control, which properly implements the generally held belief that only people with a right to be in the UK should be in the UK. Given the way that the system has been allowed to deteriorate in recent decades, this will be a serious task, which will involve a much more robust use of the available instruments that has been completed here too. So basically, having an even more tougher immigration system. So similarly, a renewed emphasis on law and order, effective policing, speedy justice, and reform of our disgraceful prisons. And much else, including maintaining effective armed forces, requiring public servants to deliver better results, and supporting enterprise and trade rather than getting in the way. So again, continuing very much on that line, definitely being government just basically out, no regulations whatsoever. Again, maintaining effective armed forces. Okay. I think that's more in comes down to more a defense policy rather than maybe having an effective one. Oh dear. Anyway, yeah. I know how you feel. I know how you feel, Duke Vengeance. I know how you feel reading this. So, the third and final pillar is to make a determined effort to re-establish the viability and attractiveness and cohesion of the United Kingdom as a country, and to bed in the view, irreversibly, that leaving the EU was the necessary precursor to achieve this. This, to do so, means, so essentially, Frost here, what he is doing is what a lot of other Brexiteers are incredibly worried about, that Brexit is failing. It is. They don't really have any good ideas, and they don't. The Tories have absolutely no ideas when it's come to governing. They've, as Duke Vengeance has said in chat, they've been in power for over 12 years, and they've made things incredibly worse. More people are on food banks. More people are in debt than ever before. The government has taken on more debt than ever before from a party that brags about its fiscal responsibility. It has screwed up the economy even prior to Brexit with its way that it has been essentially just leaving it to rot, essentially on a vine by doing nothing. And now, post Brexit, they want to completely just say, right, we want full laissez faire capitalism. The government is not going to get involved in the market, regulating it in any way, shape, or form. And of course, the final one, bedding it in that view that leaving the EU was worth it. And that's what they're all terrified, that people are going to realize, well, actually, hang on, was leaving the EU worth it? And we've seen the polls. We have seen the polls. This is why I think this is the third and final pillar. And he talks about trying to embed the view that it's irreversible. We have seen the poll numbers. People are starting to go, yeah, actually, Brexit doesn't seem to be like a good idea. It seems to have been the complete wrong idea. Things aren't going as well as the Brexiteers claimed that they would. And we've always said, look and compare this to what happened with the Iraq War. Prior to the beginning of the Iraq War, all the polls were showing pretty much the vast majority of the UK population was in favor of the Iraq War. Now, if you went out in the streets, given the polling numbers, you should be able to find someone who was in favor of the Iraq War. Again, polling completely shifted when we saw the reality of what happened in Iraq, and it's the exact same way now. So let's see how he's going to sort of embed this view. So doing much more to make clear that we are all British citizens first. This means rejecting identity politics. How does identity politics reject the idea that we're British citizens first? He's trying to whip up the idea of using sort of, again, buzzword bingo, of using these terms to make people scared, and just doesn't have a clue really what he's talking about. So anyway, continues, especially in the areas where the government has direct control, making it clear that our diversity is a strength only if we are tolerant of each other's lives and opinions, not if we all divide into competing interest groups. That would happen anyway, technically. I mean, we're all really competing against each other. I mean, when you go for a job, you're competing against other people, different people. What we see now, the inequality that we have, that's technically different interest groups, people from the south, people from cities versus town. This has been a factor and a characteristic throughout history. It's not just a recent woke identity politics thing. This is why I've said I don't cover identity politics, because it rocked your brain, and then you come up with ridiculous ideas like this. So, anyway, his next point: being proud of the achievements of the United Kingdom, our culture, values, and history, and ensuring that everyone is going through our education system or settling permanently in the UK has a basic knowledge of it. People don't have a basic knowledge of UK history now. As we said last time when he brought this up, primary school history, you brushed the surface. You know, you learn what Romans were, you learn what, maybe what Vikings were. We did sort of Victorians, but you didn't really brush into any of like the social history or anything like that. And even like primary and secondary school, you do not even touch on what the empire was. This is what he's talking about. Oh my God, United Kingdom, we had this massive empire. Wasn't it absolutely fantastic? No, it really wasn't. I'm sure you've all seen like the history memes of like, the British Empire in UK textbooks, and then the British Empire in I don't know, name a former colony in Indian textbooks, or wherever, name your former colony, really. It We've only really started teaching the reality of what it was like, and the reality is the British Empire wasn't really as good as a lot of people make it out to be. Take, for example, the Boer War, where we invented concentration camps and did a lot of really, really bad things to the Boer people back there. Was that good? Was that something that, But no, it's because they don't want to bring it up. They don't want to bring up, places and things. For example, Glasgow's a fantastic example. Most people, if you live in the UK, you might have a Jamaica Street, and a Jamaica Street, way back in the day, was where all the goods from Jamaica used to be sold back in those days. That's why you have a Jamaica Street. We need to actually seriously start teaching that the British Empire was not that good, and yet we benefited it, but we basically stripped people's culture, history, identity, historical artifacts. We've done a lot of bad stuff, and this, and if you're teaching history, that is history, like it or not. You have good parts of history, you have bad parts of history, you have bizarre parts of history, like the what is it, the Ifrit latrine disaster, where there was a royal meeting and the floor collapsed and everyone fell into the latrine, and loads of people died. Just one of these bizarre accidents that happened in history that had a lot of impact on European politics and policy, from like who was there, who died, who survived, and what would have happened if certain people had died in that disaster and not gone on to do what they would do later on in history. So that's a bizarre example, but again, you've got to accept in history, and every country has both good aspects of history and bad aspects of history. You do not get just to celebrate the good aspects while completely ignoring the bad aspects. The bad aspects should be taught as well. Otherwise, you're not telling people the whole truth about history. So anyway, let's get back to it. Here we go. Standing up for the unity of the country. Overriding the Northern Ireland Protocol as envisaged in the bill currently going through Parliament. Again, that will lead to a trade war. It will basically break the concept of, well, how do you not have a border on the island of Ireland? You either got to have it, between the Republic and the North, but you can't because of the Good Friday Agreement, or you've got to have it in the Irish Sea, which is the only acceptable point. Or you just give up and just say, okay, we're going to join the single market customs union because, it's the only way to keep an open border. We've been asking Brexiteers this exact same question going all the way back to 2016. And you can see all the way back in 2016 just saying Northern Ireland is not going to be a problem. You've got Daniel Anand saying it's not going to be a problem because we're going to be staying in the single market customs union. Anyway, continues. Making it clear, the further referendum in Scotland is not justified and will never be justified unless there is a significant majority for independence over a sustained period, and meanwhile, ensuring that devolution is confined to domestic policies without the recent mission creep into foreign affairs and immigration. as far as I'm aware, devolution is always regarded domestic policy. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that the Scottish Parliament, or even the Welsh Parliament, or even Stormont has as power over foreign affairs and immigration. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. So anyway, so in short, so this is TLDR. So in short, free markets and revived capitalism are necessary to create wealth, but are not in themselves sufficient to create a successful country. To achieve that, we need a sense of cohesion and a common endeavour across the country, and accordingly, we must revive the UK nation state, show pride in it, and steer it properly and make it work. And to be effective in doing so, we need a smaller but more effective state that does its core tasks properly. So, all these, not one genuine idea of how to do the idea he's suggesting, except here. Except with the Northern Ireland Bill. That's it. What about being proud of the achievements of the United Kingdom? How do you do that, Frost? What do you do? Or is that just drivel? I suspect it's just drivel. Because as I said, it's, identity politics and this nonsense. It rocks your brain. Like I say, you start having bizarre ideas like this. And then you get other things to hear. So, okay, a system of effective immigration control. So how do you have that effective immigration control that generally has the held belief that only people with a right to be in the UK should be in the UK? How do you actually do that? It's very poorly thought out ideas with no actual idea to follow through on them. This is the exact same type of nonsense we saw the Brexiteers talking about in 2016. Well, at least the exact same tactics and the way that they talked about them back then. So anyway, back to it. So all these things must be tackled together. Getting onto this track will not be easy or painless. The necessary measures will require significant upheaval and change if they are to put onto a new path of growth trajectory. They will also require politicians and civil servants to accept that they got some things wrong in the past and to change politics and methods in which they are, quote, very attached to. Pardon me, but there is no avoiding this. As the authors of the original Stepping Stones report underlined repeatedly, there is no point in investing in efforts in policies where there are which are politically possible when they cannot, in fact, solve our problems. Except you haven't really put forward any policy here, nor have you really addressed what you said earlier, what you viewed as the problems of this country. In fact, most of your ideas and solutions you would put forward would hurt people, because if you're going to take away unions' power to strike, what happens then to those workers that are unhappy in their working conditions? Do they just leave? This is right-wing libertarian nonsense. I have these ideas, I think they'll work, but when you actually think them out to how they would play out, they don't make a lot of sense. Here we are. So, number 6. This is the final part. Thank God. Thank God. The final part. So, part 6. How to deliver what is necessary. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some policy into how we do some of these things that he's suggesting, because he hasn't gone into that. So, it is, of course, not possible to do everything described above immediately. Because the problems are linked, the necessary reforms must reflect these linkages and can be carefully sequenced, while still ensuring the gradual process across all fronts. Normalization of interest rates and fiscal monetary policies need to go together with a very significant supply side reform and a reduction in taxation and the size of the state. Again, no one would vote for these. No one would generally vote for these in an open election. Any opposition would have an absolute field day over these. So none of that will be possible unless people believe that their leaders in the country want to succeed and are committed to making it work. To make that happen, 3 things will be required. So, okay, let's see what we've got this time. So, a short-run set of measures to signal a change in direction, domestically and internationally. And to support the economy through a difficult period, there will also be the moment when hard thinking is done, and what comes next is an effort to prepare the political ground for it. So essentially, Frost is saying, come up with a plan. Come up with a plan. Next point, a longer run plan. This needs to be a national strategy. Well, considering that the Conservatives in 12 years haven't come up with any type of serious strategy and have relied on very, very short-term wins, and that's how they run the government, and that's partly the problem where we are now. I don't see that happening. A program for the viability of the British nation state over the next decade. The specific elements and the precise sequencing need to be carefully thought out and work into the months to come. The tasks to be tackled first are those which are both important and most likely to be difficult to growth and to perceptions. The plan will need electoral consent. So again, let's have another referendum maybe, I think he's saying there. And the final one, a communications effort to clearly explain the goal, justify the measures as to why there is no alternative if the country is to get a grip on its problems. Well, there are alternatives, but you don't really seem to want to do them. And we're probably going to find out very soon just how bad that can actually be, where during the pandemic, the government stepped in and showed that, yes, the government can be really effective when it steps in to help people and help solve problems, which was why so many Conservatives, and especially the right-wing Conservatives, got so annoyed. Because there was one quote where one Conservative was quoted saying, "The Conservative Party is showing that socialism works." Do you know? So there are alternatives. The cost of living crisis is a fantastic point. There are all sorts of ideas floating around about what the Conservatives could do. Are Truss and Sunak interested in that? We've just heard today. Have a meeting. You know, Sunak, Johnson, and Truss sit down and discuss how can we solve the cost of living crisis. Truss isn't interested, and I don't think Sunak seemed too interested in that idea either. And of course, Boris is well, Johnson, whatever. I know people get annoyed when you call him Boris, but who cares? He's checked out. He's more than enough checked out at this point. You know, he's not interested in governing. You know, there's currently meant to be, according to Boris Johnson, what we've heard from some insiders, his biggest priority at the moment is trying to find out who released that video of him dancing at his wedding. That currently apparently is meant to be his biggest priority. So shows you exactly the state of how bad our current government really is in. So anyway, these measures will need to be implemented by a determined team of ministers strongly aligned on policy goals. So the short-run measures. The first set of short-run measures should aim at supporting the economy through the immediate difficulties, noticeably through flexing fiscal policy in adaptation of further monetary tightening to deal with the current inflation in order to support demand through a very serious shock that is coming. More widely, they should reverse out as far as possible the poor decision makings that have been put on train since the 2019 election, and begin to establish a more credible economic and political framework. They should cover the following ground. So, the existing terms of Brexit must be protected, and the protocol issue must be resolved so as not to put Northern Ireland firmly and durably and fully within the UK. Again, you can't do that. You break so many rules and you don't have an idea. You do this Northern Ireland Protocol, you're already breaking the very existing terms you assigned, which you've just written, you said must be protected. And then you go on to talk about breaking the Northern Ireland Protocol, which you signed and created, Frost. I mean, that says it all there in right this one point. It says it all there. That's so contradictory. So contradictory. And again, how do you protect the existing terms of Brexit? What do you mean by that? This is what I said before. It's all ideas and no actual substance about how these ideas get done. Now, I'm fine if someone wants to write that and come out and say, these are ideas which I think will be good, but I don't fully yet have, them fully fleshed out. If you'd said that, that would be fine. But this is being treated as a serious policy document that the next Prime Minister should be following. This is how Frost is presenting this. So, next point. The tax rises implemented must be reversed. Tough and immediate decisions on spending, including those on political projects such as HS2, will be required. So, essentially, no HS2, no infrastructure, which is desperately needed, which would help improve the economy so much. Next point. To begin the process of supply side reform, the status of inherited EU law, whether embodied in primary or secondary legislation, should be changed, and it should be all subject to a sunset clause. This will then switch the incentives and ensure the internal and external lobby groups do not have a lock on change. And this is incredibly worrying because this has been an idea that's been kicked around for quite a while about putting sunset clauses on all EU law. That essentially you can basically say, okay, we're going to keep this particular EU law for 5 years. Now, what happens? Well, essentially, if you're a government or you're a party that wants to get rid of EU law, you basically say, yep, 5 years, that EU law is gone. And you hope that you win a general election and then you don't have to address it because you hope that those rules and regulations just fall off a cliff edge. Because if you're a party, like they are at the moment, that is ideologically driven by free market, fundamentalist, libertarian, nut job theology, which they very, very clearly are at the moment, then getting rid of all legislation is fine. And we have a lot of EU law on the books. We've been a member of the EU for over 40 years. We have a lot of EU law on the books. And just getting rid of the EU law just because it was an EU law is dumb. It is completely dumb. So, energy policy must be rapidly refocused on security and supply and cost. That is not a straightforward given the appalling decisions of recent years. In the short run, VAT and renewable subsidies need to come off bills. Now, this is, of course, part of the whole net zero stuff. And I really do think we need to be committing more to net zero, but we also need to do admit that some net zero policies are going to be quite hurtful. We know that's going to happen. So we also have to sort of prepare people for that and help that transition. They don't have to be as painful a transition as possible. But Frost is again advocating that we just get rid of all renewables, even though if the Tories 10 years ago had not put a complete moratorium on offshore and onshore wind farms, we might not be in as bad a position as we are now. Fracking must be allowed to restart, and the positive expeditions of its proponents tested in real life. Gas storage capacity increased. Well, the Tories just sold off all our gas storage capacity because they said it wasn't needed. Whoops. And the rush to the technologically a rush to, quote, technologically suspect renewables slowed. Again, all anti-net zero. We don't want to move toward renewables at all, which is completely opposite of what we should be doing. So the unnecessary further regulation should be halted. What have I said about getting rid of sort of regulation? The online safety bill should be scrapped and rethought. The rented sector reforms, fortunately, only a white paper stage, should be halted. Again, I haven't read the white paper on rented sector reforms. That might be quite interesting. If Frost's against that, then I think I have to go and track down this white paper. There needs to be much more vigorous policing of the wave of regulatory measures brought in by secondary legislation. So again, all about getting rid of legislation. If it comes in, we've got to stop it in any way we can, because the government should not be involved in legislation. Again, all part of his free market fundamentalist ideology. The Rwanda plan has to be delivered. It's a terrible plan. Everyone says it's a terrible plan, including bypassing the new Bill of Rights, and if necessary, in due course, by deograting, deograting. I think that's it. I've not come across that before, so excuse me for my ignorance on that word. And parts of the European Convention on Human Rights. Why? Why are we diverging from this? Conservatives should love the European Convention on human rights. It was like the Winston Churchill staple thing that he did. One of the good things that he actually did, getting us in that and creating this. So a pushback needs to begin against the pernicious politics of identity politics and group rights. So how about the right wing when they use identity politics? Does there need to be pushback against that as well? A key tool should be a firmer and more vigorously advocacy of free speech so that necessary debates cannot be chilled. So again, free speech above all, but again, if you've ever heard of the tyranny of the, I can't remember it now, where if you allow sort of crazy ideas to sort of be spread unchallenged, because if they what they will do will use these exact laws that he's talking about, so that they don't get shut down, they don't get challenged, and of course those ideas then get allowed to be spread. We have a very good free speech system in the UK, right now. Others will disagree, I'm sure, but to be honest, free speech at the moment relatively good. It's not really a big issue. It's only a problem by these people who are like, oh my God, identity politics, chilling free speech. Free speech is not an issue in the UK. It really isn't. So, the longer term run plan. So the longer term strategy is even more crucial because it will require a significant far-reaching change. It will be spelt out clearly and enjoy clear electoral backing. Time needs to be spent on getting it right, while the short-run change of direction is set out to be improved. The strategy should be explicitly based on reviving the country, rebuilding state capacity. Again, I thought you wanted a smaller state. Allowing markets to work, and restoring individual liberty. Again, very libertarian buzzwords there. But then again, this is what this whole white paper, this whole art essay has been. It will need to include enterprise boosting, trust boosting reforms to tackle vested interests, even those interests are Conservative Party supporters. Interesting. Interesting that he should say that. It should also set out a clear direction of travel over a 5 to 10 year period and do at least the following. Enable the normalization of monetary policy. Reduce house price inflation. Again, don't see it says that. Reduce the size of the state to at least the size of the Tony Blair years. Why? Why should we go back to reduce the size of the state to the Tony Blair years? What was special about that? And again, Frost has to answer, what is it the government is going to give up when it reduces the size of the state? So he's going to do this with rigorous and forceful targets for spending reduction and proper control of spending against those targets where in-remitting action is required. As a consequence, they will get lower and much simpler taxes. I very much doubt it. Implement a very significant regulatory reform and hugely increase the competitive processes of our economy through a boosted CMA, tariff reduction, and much else. Again, tariff reduction. What did I say earlier about, tariff reduction? They want free tariffs. They want zero tariffs. Been here, done that before. We did it in the Victorian age. It lasted 6 years. Didn't really go down that well. Free up the housing market by abolishing stamp duty. Well, okay, that essentially means the government is going to take in less income. Reducing burdens on landlords. Doing what exactly? What you mean by reducing burdens on them? The strength of competition in the house building market. Again, how do you do that? Because the Conservatives are adamant that they've been doing that for the past 12 years. And eliminate the unnecessary blockages to greater supply. What unnecessary blockages? This is what I've always said. It's all ideas. No, yeah. Oh, it's also so warm still. So you have to excuse me if I'm just like, huh. So, put in place a refreshed energy strategy that reverses the decline in energy production and supply, prioritizes security of supply and affordability, and still reduces carbon emissions over time. You've just advocated for getting rid of renewables completely. There's so much contradiction in this. It's unbelievable. Even sometimes in the same sentence as we saw earlier. Establish a credible plan to reduce immigration over time. How do you intend to do that? I know he said, we're going to establish a credible plan, but again, how do you intend to do that? Begin the generation-long task of modernizing the NHS, ensuring that better results are delivered for the vast sums spent. This is exactly what they're saying about Whitehall currently at the moment, or at least what was being, said by Truss and Sunak recently. Oh, we've got to modernise, our civil service. What did it mean? It meant making huge spending cuts. It meant getting rid of staff. Does that mean the same thing for the NHS? I suspect it does. Change the benefits system so that benefits are paid to those who need them, not those who don't. Well, it does that at the moment. We have almost next to no benefit fraud in this country, despite what, again, Conservatives claim. And what does this mean by paid to those who need them, not those who don't? What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Again, so worrying. But I guarantee if you had Frost to expand on that, you would probably get something like what Seville Brainman recently said. So, reform the civil service and the state machine through a civil service reform bill, together with a fundamental change to Whitehall. So, what bill do you mean through that? How do you intend to reform it? What do you mean? And then this is the best one: abolish the Equalities Act. So basically, get rid of all the Equalities Act. Just get rid of it completely. I'm surprised not more people are talking about that, because that surprised me. Just get rid of the Equalities Act. I just got no words to do that. That would be absolutely ridiculous to do. So, devising this strategy should not be done on the hoof. Getting the detail and sequencing right is crucial, and it is inherently both a political and technocratic project that needs to be brought through accordingly, with both the administrative machine and the right political input. The new government should put this strategy together in its first 6 months. So, communication. This is going to be interesting. We'll see what these have to say about this. But obviously, if you remember, it was just, oh yeah, we've got to communicate this to the people. So, the government needs to level with people about the scale of changes, but also with positivity and encouragement about the ability of the British people to meet them, as they have in the past. Communication should focus on the underlying policy goals, not the day-to-day trivia, and should treat people like adults. Well, I think that might be pretty important as well. That means it is necessary to return to doing politics as a matter of urgency. The diagnosis, the thinking, the policy need to be communicated effectively. That's just politics in general. That's just politics, you know. An effort must be made to go beyond the superficialities. Well, that's pretty much what I can describe this essay as, and get across the heart of the problem. Communication should not be seen as part of the primary political strategy, not media management. It is about building understanding in public operation for what is necessary, not about responding to the daily news cycle. Day-to-day in and outs of Westminster political pass unnoticed by the overwhelming majority of the population. Is true about that. Yet, it is on these policies that government communications activities should be primarily focused. But getting the communications methodology right is no substantive for getting policy right. The problem is that so far the government's discourse, for all the reasons set out earlier in this essay, has been about avoiding hard truths and not facing them. Well, they claim they're following the hard truths, but they're not there. Of course, putting its arms around the people, not encouraging them to face the challenges and deal with them. It is time to return to speaking the principles of patriotism. Why that doesn't really get you anywhere. Of building a successful nation of low taxation and enterprise. Again, we've been through this very recently. People do not want low taxation. Even conservatives do not want low taxation. Freedom to act, to create, to retain wealth. to debate and speak freely, even if others don't like your opinions, and to make your own economic choices for you or your own family, rather than to have them made for you. These principles will entail being honest with the people. Not everyone can get everything they want from the state. Some people, of course, require government help and may support. Many do not, but many have still gotten used to it. Again, certainly, definitely going after benefits there. The scale of challenge illustrated in comments of Mick William, the ALSF General Secretary, back in 2022. Speaking of train drivers' pay, he said that we want an increase in line with the cost of living. We want to be able to buy in 2022 what we could buy in 2021. Unfortunately, the nation as a whole cannot buy in 2022 what it could buy in 2021. Getting people to understand that is the first step to putting the country in the right path. Well, maybe they should, pay more. Increase in line with the cost of living. Maybe they should do that. Maybe Frost. Maybe talk about increasing the minimum wage. That one. That one. And of course, we've been through the conclusion. So that is, ladies and gentlemen, it done. We've done it. We've done it. We've conquered it. Holy illusions and holy illusions indeed, Batman. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow, indeed. So that was Lord Frost's essay on reality-based politics and sustaining the Brexit revolt. Overall, absolutely useless. It gives out very vague ideas, says something specific, and then doesn't go into the specifics of he actually wants to do. So he said numerous times in this paper, I want to reduce the size of the state. Okay, so exactly how are you going to achieve that? He said at one point, which we read through, go back to reduce the size of the state to the Tony Blair years. So, okay, the same question comes again. What is it the government is no longer going to do? What services is it no longer going to provide? You've talked about you want to, quote, modernize the civil service with a civil service reform bill. What exactly do you want to see in that bill? What changes do you want to make? He doesn't say. And that is why we should be very, very skeptical and very worried about people like Frost and even other people going forward in government who use this type of exact same type of language, because they haven't got any ideas. They've got vagaries of what they want to talk about, or they really know what they want to talk about, but they don't want to say, shall we say, the quiet part out loud, as Rishi Sunak was caught out very recently doing, in saying, yeah, I took all the money from the poor urban areas and gave them to, Tunbridge Wells, where they don't really need the money, to be honest. It's those poor urban areas that need the development money. Maybe if you developed those poor urban areas and brought them up, maybe you wouldn't have to give them money. But then again, that would require thought and, time and energy spent on creating and crafting policy to be able to do that. So, what do you think? Let me know. What do you think, guys? What do you think? Mark Hart, who will rid us of this troublesome lord? Indeed. Yeah. If that was his essay, I wish he'd said the dog ate it. Yep. Yep, exactly. Yep. It's all about acquiring wealth and retaining it. F everyone else. Yep. Duke French, yeah, I think a revolution is in order. Well, certainly if they achieve that, almost certainly, yeah. Chris, good evening to you. But yeah, that, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I wish I had a bowl of water. I'd wash my hands of this terrible essay. because it was awful. Generally, that was awful. Yeah, that was generally bad. Yeah, yeah. For once, I'm glad YouTube didn't tell me about this live stream. Yeah, well, don't worry. I anticipated this. Because I too need some lifting up after this awful state of affairs. So,
about saving the planet that much?
Do you think you've Hang on, I think we need to put my earphones in 1 second. Because I thought I'd do something special for you. So Politics Joe put out... Hang on, hopefully it doesn't change.
Oh no, but it's changed like, yeah. I'll do this.
There we go. Why does it always do that? I don't know why it always overrides. So annoying. I probably just need to get some earbuds that don't have a built microphone built in. Bonus Jeff, maybe later. maybe later. 1 second. Let's just kill the music. There we go. There we go. So we are going to go and have a look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to meet the Tory voter, or the normal Tory voter. I don't know how many of you have seen this yet. But yeah, this is going to be fun. So hang on to your hats, because this is your, as they call it, meet the normal people choosing the next prime minister, or should we say your average Tory party member. Listen and despair upon these words. Yeah, you I don't know whether it's a bad thing to go from our Lord Frost essay straight into this. Anyway, here we go. I want to make sure the volume's up. There we go.
I'm sorry, I've had an age where I don't really care about saving the planet that much.
Do you think you've ready to resign?
I think he was right to apologise.
I've been a Conservative for a long time. I've always seen them as an anti-establishment party.
What do you think?
So, 3 things right off the bat there. The first guy saying, "Yeah, I'm too old to worry about climate change." Well, what about everyone else that's younger than you? You know, what about everyone else that's younger than you? I think we have a right to probably be a bit worried about climate change at this point, guys. You know, think we've more than earned that right to worry about climate change. Second of all, this guy on screen, as you saw earlier, bit of a Boris supporter, doesn't think it was right for Boris Johnson to resign. And then, of course, the final bit you got, I just saw there, the Tory party are his, as he claims, an anti-establishment party. When, to be honest, when you think about a establishment party, I don't think you can get more established than the Conservative Party. I don't think you can get more established than that.
people don't understand about being a Tory?
That most people are normal.
I don't object to the fact he went to Winchester. My problem is that he was head boy.
What does being a Conservative...
So, okay. What was his, I'd love to know what his issue was, because they don't actually address that. I wish they did address that. What was his issue about him being head boy? I would love to know. I would love to know what that is.
Conservative mean to you?
Freedom.
Freedom. Freedom for what? It doesn't make sense. Freedom for what? You know, freedom. Guess what, guys? If you're subscribed to my channel, you are the most freest of all YouTube subscribers out there. Think of the freedom that you enjoy being subscribed to my channel. And if you aren't, why aren't you? Hit that subscribe button. Free yourself. Enjoy the freedom of being subscribed to my YouTube channel and joining the most freest YouTube channel on all the YouTubes. This is... Again, buzzwords. Complete buzzword. But again, yeah, if you are enjoying yourselves, please do subscribe to the channel, you know.
Opportunity, the ability to hang on to your own money and do your own thing, rather than the socialist left-wing dogma that we're being thrust down our throats all the time.
How long have you been a member?
The left-wing ideology that we're having thrust down our throats all the time. Who has been the party in power for the past 12 years? Most newspapers in the UK are right-wing. The biggest circulation of any newspaper is the Daily Mail, and it's incredibly right-wing.
Member for?
Certainly, since I retired in '86 from the army.
What does being a Conservative mean to you?
Well, having to deal with a lot of that type quite often.
I've been a Conservative for a long time. I've always seen them as an anti-establishment party.
Who specifically do you mean?
I'm lost for words. How are they anti-establishment?
By the establishment?
I guess it's the left liberal establishment which runs the media, which runs the universities.
The left liberal establishment that runs the media. What did we just say about, if you look at news in the UK, most of the big news outlets in the UK are incredibly right-leaning. Incredibly right-leaning. The biggest, not only the biggest news circulation is the Daily Mail, but the Daily Mail website itself is one of the highest trafficked news websites, not only in the UK, in the world. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Ben. Yeah, always had Rupert down as a Marxist. Yeah, who knew Rupert Murdoch had always been a Marxist? Who knew? Maybe he'd just been hiding from it all this time.
Which runs Whitehall.
Well, for me, it's a...
Again, evidence, please, cited. Like you say, civil servants are actively encouraged not to be, you know, as a civil servant, you're not allowed to be a member of a political party. You are allowed to protest, but there's rules and stuff. And what you are and you aren't allowed to be. And you've got to sort of, perform your job, and regardless of your sort of political ideology.
About keeping one eye on the past and our heritage and preserving our institutions, but also looking forward. If you look back over history, conservative governments have actually been some of the most radical whenever it comes to policy.
Depends what exactly you mean by that, of course. Again, I wish you'd expand on that. We'll have to see. But, yep.
What would you say is the main issue facing the United Kingdom right now?
Getting a new member into place.
Most Tories, particularly now, are just normal people going about their everyday business, trying to help better the country.
I'm sorry, I've had an age where I don't really care about saving the planet that much.
Most of my friends are not conservative, and a lot of them have said if I ever stood for election, that not only vote for me, but campaign for me.
I like the fact that Liz Truss was loyal to Boris Johnson. I was a huge Boris Johnson fan.
Would you prefer Boris Johnson to have stayed on as Prime Minister?
Yes.
It is really scary. It is really scary, to be honest, the amount of love that Boris Johnson still enjoys in the Tory party. And people wonder, whenever I've sort of covered it on this channel, people wonder or think that I'm joking sometimes, that Boris Johnson thinks, he can make a comeback. I'm sorry, Boris Johnson could absolutely make a political comeback. So yeah, he could absolutely make a comeback. He's still ridiculously popular in the Conservative Party. I think he's very much lost a lot of his sort of the popularity that I think he previously enjoyed, but yeah, not anymore. But he's still very popular, and he could still make a comeback because of people like this guy.
Do you think he's right to resign?
I think he was right to apologise.
This hopefully is going to tackle the woke tendencies, which really is the major fight of our times.
What would you define wokeism as?
Well, I think it's the focus on identity politics, which has really helped destroy the Labour Party.
I'm here.
But so wokeism, according to that guy, is just the focus of identity politics which destroyed the Labour Party. They have no idea what even their own buzzwords or terms even mean at this point. It's absolutely crazy. Oh, and yeah, V-Crew, there you are. There you are, as you comment. Yeah, I was just looking for it. So yeah, interesting enough, I saw an interview quite recently where you had a guy who was a Democrat, but was saying in Republican areas where Democrats don't stand a chance, what people on the left should do is start running as Republicans in Republican primaries and start exposing people on the right to left-wing ideas and left-wing policies that way. And to be honest, the guy had some good ideas. Like I say, remind me on Twitter and whatnot, and I'll try and find that interview. But it's definitely worth listening to. He makes some interesting points. Don't know if it would work here in the UK. I don't think it would work at all here in the UK. But in America, you've got a chance because they're a bit more televised than our sort of selection process is.
To judge their characters, they are going to offer everything in the book. And it's a bid market. Well, I'm not in that.
Yeah.
I want to see what they're like as people.
Okay, I'll give that old guy. I'll give that old guy credit. He's going there knowing full well they are going to offer everything under the sun to him, and he's going there to more evaluate their character rather than what they are saying. I will give him credit for that. I will give him credit for that.
Is it fair to say that a party that's been in government for 12 years isn't the establishment?
Yes, absolutely. They failed to tackle the establishment, and they who've captured the institutions, who captured Whitehall, and they did have a big overthrow of the establishment on Brexit, but they really haven't followed through on that.
I mean, the most Tory thing to happen is this.
It was the establishment that pushed for Brexit and ran it as an anti-establishment vote, partly most of it, running against the metropolitan elites. But it was, Nigel Farage, big money banker, backing Brexit. Yeah.
Haven't followed through on that.
I mean, the most Tory thing to happen is people's outfits. I mean, just go somewhere and people turn up in pink trousers and like flowery shirts. I mean, that's pretty Tory, yeah.
I wouldn't really call that Tory. I'd say that's more fashion choices of those people, not the fact that that's pretty Tory. Bizarre, absolutely bizarre.
Why are you Conservative?
Well, probably because I go for stability. I go for reasonable policies.
Well, good luck. Good luck. Good luck going into that hustings. Good luck.
I go for, relatively speaking, low taxation, and generally speaking, a place in the world, or with us adopting a place in the world. In the other side, I'm afraid they don't do that. So I'm not very much a supporter for them.
Excellent.
Is that all right?
Yeah. That's it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your average Tory voter, and should scare you beyond belief. That's so Tory. Oh, anyway, not time we've got that now. I think we've got time for. I think we've got time for one more video. Go on then. Go on then. I'm entitled. Oh my God, Jeff did a video about Rishi Sunak's. Oh my God, we're watching that. We're watching this one. So this is Jeff's video on Rishi Sunak essentially outing himself as a reverse Robin Hood. Let us speed you up because you're always slow, Jeff.
Hello there. Rishi Sunak has just invented his own unique Ratner moment and has just sunk his number 10 ambitions in the process. Liz Truss must be thinking that Christmas is coming early for her right now. I mean, all she has to do now is keep as quiet as possible and let Rishi Sunak take all the falls. And he's gone from Rishi Sunak to Rishi Sunk with one single self-inflicted Ratner moment.
He was already sunk well before that. I've already said his chance to win was in the first week. He didn't take that chance. If he seriously wants to win, he's going to have to engage in some serious mud throwing. Serious mud throwing. Jeff on speed for 1.5. Yeah. I've said this before. Jeff talks so slow, you have to speed him up.
Basically, while on his leadership campaign tour, he told a group of wealthy Tories in Tunbridge Wells that he had started the process of diverting money from deprived areas into places like theirs. Because it...
I'm interested to see where Jeff takes this. I'm interested to see where he goes with this. Let's see where he goes.
Needed to be done, he said. Is that the Rishi answer to levelling up? And it was all filmed and is now brought to us on YouTube via the New Statesman. And to be honest, I can't see how he can spin his way out of this one. But worse, if Rishi the Sunk is anywhere near a cabinet post come the next general election, this video will be looped endlessly across social media for the entire duration of any Labour campaign. And I'm not sure he realises just how toxic he's now made himself to the future fortunes of his own party. This will not rub off.
It's not just him. It's the entire party that's done that. I mean, you've got to remember at the end of the day, Prime Minister gets the deciding vote. He can say to Rishi Sunak, "You're not doing that," and yet no one, not even Michael Gove, who was in charge of Level Up, not even Kimi Badnoch, who was his junior minister, said anything about this. This taints the entire Tory party.
This is one of those moments that will live on in the infamy of Tory politics. Here we have a mega wealthy, multi-millionaire budding Prime Minister who is talking about diverting funds from deprived areas to well-heeled neighbourhoods, while constructing a huge swimming pool for himself, just as public pools will have to be shut because they can't afford the rising heating bills. His position is now untenable, and any Tory MPs and donors that support him going forwards from here are obviously as out of touch with normal life as he is. I wonder if doing a Tunbridge Wells will be a new political term for self-destructing politicians.
So,
hello there.
So yeah, so surprisingly, of course, Jeff is actually sort of against this, but he's more talking about how it's more a gaffe for him than, of course, the actual political implications. Not surprising. I think, again, the political implications of this are far, far more damning, not only for Rishi Sunak, but indeed his entire Tory party. I think he can pretty much kiss goodbye to all the Northern Tory votes. But as I've said, at this point, I am 90% sure Liz Truss is going to win. And that 10% is only there unless she does something monumentally stupid. And even then, I think it could be close. I even think it could be close. So, yeah. That's essentially Jeff's take on the whole on the whole Rishi dilemma, but there is something else I want to show you because, oh my God, I wish I was a student. So if you don't follow the Secret Tory on Twitter, why don't you? It's fantastic. It's a really good Twitter account to follow. But he recently shared this that I saw, and my God, I wish I was a student, because you have no idea how fun this would be to go to. So this is the Reasoned London Student Summit. This is a summit where, oh, again, it's a student-only conference, unfortunately, or I tell you what, I might be there. I might be there to film all the fun stuff that happens. So, join students from across the UK in London on November the 3rd for a full-day conference and hear from leading lights of British politics. So, who are these? Who are these wonderful illuminaries of British politics that are going to this conference? Well, leading the stage, Nigel Farage, Darren Crafty Wank Grimes, Peter Hitchens, Steve Baker, MP, Esha Karak, Daniel Hanan, Marsha Toozy, Ben Bradley, Jess Gill, Mike Graham, Sean Bailey, Emma Harrelton, never heard of her before, Claire Fox, and Calvin Robertson. The we should defund the BBC, except when I'm on it, and then it's fine. Oh my God, I hope come November we get videos from this. I hope we get to see full talks from these people, because I would love to see what these people are going to talk about to students. Yeah, I would love to hear what they've got to say about this. Yeah. Funny to call it reasoned while the guest list is most fully of unreasoned people being broadcast. Yeah. Sounds like the generation game from hell. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is, yeah, this honestly looks like it would be an absolute day from hell. I don't know how many people are going to end up actually going to this, but it's a student only event, unfortunately, so I can't go. But oh my word, my word, I would love to go to see this in person. I think it will be funny. I do hope videos of these talks, of these panels or whatever ends up going on this day gets broadcast or shown, because I'll tell you what, come November, guys, I already know what we're doing in November in terms of content for these live streams if they do. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, for joining. That has been the Wednesday live stream. Hope you've all enjoyed yourselves. But before you leave, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. There is a link down below to my Patreon page, my one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee. There's also a link to join the Pony Club as well, where you'll get badges, you'll get emojis, and of course, for Patreon members and Pony Club members, I am doing a weekly video. We're up to 4 now. So if you are a member on the Patreon or you are a member of the Pony Club, there are member-only videos that you can enjoy, that you only get to see, that I do especially for you. So as always, thank you very much for everyone. I hope you do enjoy the rest of your week. We will see you on Saturday morning for the Good Morning Walk. As always, bright and early, catching up with the stuff that's going to do today. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fantastic. I'm glad we finished off Frost's Holy Illusions, because it was wholly terrible, but that's what you've got to do. I felt we had to finish it. I felt you couldn't stop halfway through. So I'm glad we've gone back and finished it off, because yeah, we're done. And then of course we met the average Tory voter, and of course we finished off with a bit of Jeff. Always good to finish off with a bit of Jeff at the end of every video. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for tuning in. Like I say, please do learn to leave a comment down below afterward. It does help out with all the algorithmical stuff and whatnot. And of course, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, we'll see you all very soon next time for some more fun and antics. So until then, we'll see you all next time.